A Berean 2025, Study 1.4, A Timeline of Men Breaking the Name Commands. Shalom, this is the fourth in a series of studies on the subject of our Creator's name. 1. The Name Commands. The Name Commands. You do not nasar, bear, carry, take, represent, hold up the name Yahuwah, your Elohim, mighty living beings, to shav, destruction, lying, or falsehood. Yahuwah does not leave the one unpunished who nasars, bears, carries, takes, represents, holds up his name to shav, destruction, lying, or falsehood. Abad, completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are dispossessing serve their mighty ones, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their Asherim with fire. And you shall cut down the carved images of their mighty ones, and shall abad, separate and destroy their names out of that place. Do not do so to Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not bring a false report. Do not put your hand with the wrong to be a malicious witness. You shall have no other Elohim before me, and in all that I have said, take heed, and make no mention of the name of other Elohim. Let it not be heard from your mouth. 2. Timeline. 900 BCE, in Malachim Aleph 22, and specifically verses 6 and 7 when read in the Hebrew, the king of the northern kingdom was calling on the name Adonai, while the king of the southern kingdom was calling on the name Yahuwah. The northern kingdom was about to be taken into captivity by the Assyrians. 800 to 900 BCE, Nebaioth's vineyard. Nebaioth pronounced the name of our Creator in praise, and wicked men accused him of blasphemy. Both the Hebrew Tanakh and the Greek Septuagint agree Nebaioth blessed our Creator's name, and it was wicked men who labeled this as blasphemy. 600 BCE, the prophet Yirmiyahu wrote, "How do you say we are wise, and the Torah of Yahuwah is with us? But look, the false pen of the scribe has worked falsehood. The wise shall be put to shame. They shall be broken down in court. See, they have rejected the word of Yahuwah, so what wisdom do they have?" 600 BCE, the prophet Yirmiyahu wrote, "The way of our Creator's people is to pronounce, swear by, our Creator's name, Yahuwah." But the religious leaders had taught the people to swear by Baal, also known as Lord. 575 BCE. Now Abraham followed the way of Yahuwah, and in the Tanakh the prophets Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu made it clear we are to follow the way of Yahuwah. And in the Brit Hadashah, believers in Messiah describe themselves as followers of the way. The Apostle Shaul also states he initially persecuted the followers of the way, but later the Apostle Shaul became a follower of the way, believing all that has been written in the Torah and in the prophets. 575 BCE, the prophet Yehezkel wrote, "Unbelieving Yisrael stated they were following the way of Adonai. Our Creator said to them, your way is not my way." The way of Adonai is not the way of Yahuwah. 575 BCE. In chapters 8 to 10 of Yehezkel, we see the gradual withdrawal of the esteem of Yahuwah from the house of Yahuwah and from Israel, as a consequence of Israel's pagan worship. The esteem of Yahuwah lifted up from the house of Yahuwah and went out over the city to the east and hovered there. In chapter 11, we see the final departure of the esteem of Yahuwah. 400 BCE, after Israel returned from the Babylonian captivity, the books of Ezra and Nehemiah were written. These books introduced Babylonian names for the lunar months and changed the name Yahushua to Yeshua. Yahushua is a theophoric name, that is, it contains part of our Creator's name, Yahu. Yeshua is not a theophoric name. Ezra removed our Creator's name from this theophoric name. Yahushua is H3091 Masoretic text, which equals G2424 in the Septuagint. Yahushua is the name of Moshe's successor. Yahushua is the given name of our Messiah, the branch, as prophesied by Zechariah. Yahushua is the name given to our Messiah in the Brit Hadashah. 300 BCE, the translation of the Greek Septuagint. In Wayikra 24:11 through to 16, in the Hebrew Tanakh, to blaspheme is to curse and despise his name. In the Greek Septuagint, to blaspheme is to pronounce his name. Andrew Case calls this a smoking gun in the transmission of the scriptural text. 186 BCE, Antioch Epiphanes, Judas Maccabees, and the Jewish rabbis. The prohibition on pronouncing the name of our Creator began as one of the anti-Torah decrees enacted by the Seleucid Greek tyrant Antioch Epiphanes in 186 BCE as part of his plan to convert Jews into Greeks. When Judas Maccabeus defeated the Greeks, he established a law requiring the Jews to use the name of our Creator in contracts. However, the rabbis opposed this law on the basis that if a contract were thrown away, this would desecrate our Creator's name. In the 1st century BCE, religious leaders developed a tradition of not pronouncing the name of our Creator. They considered the name of our Creator could only be pronounced by one person, the high priest, and then only one time each year when the high priest was inside the set-apart place. For anyone to pronounce it at any other time was considered to be blasphemy. This was blasphemy in terms of the oral law, the traditions of men, but it contradicts the Tanakh. Some suggest, 1, the name of our Creator was used disrespectfully by the Babylonians during the 70-year captivity, and for this reason, religious leaders sought to restrict its use. 2, the name of our Creator may have been co-opted by the Mitzrayim. 3, the people stopped pronouncing the name of our Creator to avoid breaking the blasphemy command. However, in substituting his name with the term Hashem or Adonai, the people broke the name command. They brought a false report. They put their hand with the wrong. They were malicious witnesses, and they spoke the name of a pagan deity. Blasphemy is pronouncing our Creator's name as a curse, that is, with contempt, reproach, scorn, or defiance. Blasphemy is not pronouncing our Creator's name as a blessing, in praise and with respect. It is wicked men who call pronouncing our Creator's name blasphemy. For example, Naboth. However, Pharisaic and rabbinic religious leaders interpreted blasphemy under two heads. 1. Blasphemy is pronouncing the name of our Creator. 2. Blasphemy is a person declaring himself equal with our Creator. For example, our Messiah in Luke chapter 4 and Luke chapter 22, and the stoning of Stephen in Acts chapter 7. When did our Messiah reveal his Father's name to the men his Father gave him? He did this every time he quoted from the Tanakh, and the quote contained his Father's name. He did this in speaking the phrases Word of Yahweh and Kingdom of Yahweh and Hallelujah. When our Messiah was in Nazareth, Luke chapter 4, he read from Isaiah chapter 61, and as he read, twice he pronounced our Creator, the Father's name, in the phrases Ruach of Yahweh and acceptable year of Yahweh. That is why all eyes were fastened on him. The unbelieving Jews were filled with wrath, and the unbelieving Jews rose up to thrust him out of the city and to cast him headlong down a hill. In his answer to the high priest, our Messiah quoted King David's words, thus pronouncing our Creator the Father's name, Yahuwah. Again, in answering the high priest's question, our Messiah said, "You said that I am He." I am and I am He are direct references to these verses, where it is very clear that I am He refers to our Creator, whose name is Yahuwah. There is a grammatic link between the words Hu, Ahiyeh, and Yahuwah. The high priest understood our Messiah was claiming to be the voice of the burning bush. He was claiming to be Yahuwah. That is why the high priest tore his clothes, accused him of blasphemy, and condemned him to death. In Acts chapter 7, Stephen spoke our Creator's name twice in quoting from the Tanakh. He again quoted the Tanakh in saying, "Behold, I see the heavens opened and the Bar Enosh standing at the right hand of Yahuwah." Stephen pronounced our Creator, the Father's name, Yahuwah. That is the reason the unbelieving Jews cried out with a loud voice, stopped their ears, and stoned him to death. 100 CE. Josephus, the Jewish historian, Hellenized Hebrew names, spelling them after the fashion of the Greeks to please his Greek readers. Josephus wrote, "It is the Greeks who are responsible for this change in nomenclature, and I have one thing to add of which the Greeks are perhaps unaware, before reverting to the narrative where I left it. With a view to euphony and my readers' pleasure, these names have been Hellenized. The form in which they appear is not that used in our country, where their structure and termination remain always the same." Euphony is the effect produced by words so combined as to please the ear. Josephus also wrote, "The name of our Creator was written in Paleo-Hebrew characters on the headgear worn by the Levitical priest, and these characters are 4 vowels. Of this was a crown made, as far from the hinder part of the head to each of the temples, but this did not cover the forehead, and it was covered by a golden plate, which had inscribed upon it the name of our Creator in set-apart characters. A mitre also of fine linen encompassed his head, which was tied by a blue ribbon, about which there was another golden crown, in which was engraved the set-apart name of our Creator. It consisted of 4 vowels. Josephus states our Creator's name consisted of 4 vowels. Here he is referring to the 4 Hebrew letters, which may be either consonants or vowels: Aleph, He, Wa, and Yod. The name of our Creator in the ancient manuscripts of the Greek Septuagint and the Greek New Testament. Before the 2nd century CE, the name of our Creator was rendered as Paleo-Hebrew letters or Aramaic letters, or was transliterated into Greek as iota, alpha, omega. Note, this is a legitimate transliteration from the Hebrew into the Greek, maintaining as far as possible the phonetic sounds of the Hebrew proper noun. Or the name of our Creator was represented by 4 or 5 dots, or represented by the Hebrew third person personal pronoun he. And this stands out among the rest of the Greek text. After the 2nd century CE, the name of our Creator was rendered as Kyrios, also known as L-O-R-D. 500 CE, the Masoretic scholars conceal our Creator's name. In the 5th century CE, Hebrew scribes known as Masoretic scribes added vowel pointing to the Hebrew letters. Ostensibly, this was to preserve the pronunciation of the Hebrew language. However, in doing so, they 1. Effectively added to the scriptures, which is prohibited. 2. The vowel points of the proper noun, Adonai, were added to the name of our Creator, with the intention the proper noun, Adonai, would be pronounced rather than our Creator's name. However, where the name of our Creator occurred in conjunction with the common noun adorn, this created an embarrassing problem. Adonai, Adonai. Therefore, in these situations, the vowel points of Elohim were added to the name of our Creator, with the intended pronunciation Adonai, Elohim. The phrase Lord, in Matthew 7:22a is perhaps a subtle prophecy of this Masoretic deceit. 500 CE, the Masoretic scholars conceal our Creator's name. "500 CE, the Masoretic scholars conceal our Creator's name." 1600 CE, our English Bibles. In the King James Version of the Bible, nakab, curse, is translated as blaspheme. Barak, blessed, is translated as blaspheme. And gadaf, blasphemy, is translated as blaspheme. In the King James Bible, curse and bless are both translated as blaspheme. 1726 CE, Yahoo. In 1726, Jonathan Swift wrote the satirical novel Gulliver's Travels. In this book, Jonathan Swift coined or used the term Yahoo. Swift describes Yahoos as filthy brutes in human form with unpleasant habits. The term Yahoo has come to mean a crude, brutish, or obscenely coarse person. The phonetic sound Yahoo is identical to the phonetic sound of the Hebrew term Yahoo, which is not a Hebrew name in itself, but is a reference to our Creator's name as part of a theophoric name. Jonathan Swift's use of this term is yet another slight on our Creator and His name. This slight on our Creator and His name has been continued by Jerry Yang and David Filo, who in 1995 introduced an internet search engine function which they called Yahoo. Anglo-Saxon tradition. The King James Version of the Bible presents theophoric names containing Yahu as either Aya or Jeho, depending on whether the syllable is at the beginning or the end of the name. Clearly, these Hebrew names in the King James were not transliterated. They were deliberately butchered in order to remove the phonetic sound of our Creator's name. 1900 CE, the device. In the preface to the NIV Bible, we read, "In regard to the divine name, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, commonly referred to as the tetragram, the translators adopted the device, used in most English versions, of rendering the name as L-O-R-D in capital letters to distinguish it from A-D-O-N-A-I, another Hebrew word rendered L-O-R-D, for which small letters are used. Whenever the two names stand together in the Old Testament as a compound name of G-O-D, they are rendered sovereign, L-O-R-D. In May 1948, David Ben-Gurion announced the new state of Israel. However, Israel's Declaration of Independence does not contain any reference to our Creator's name. As a political compromise to satisfy both the religious and secular camps, Israel's Declaration of Independence contains the phrase Sir Yisrael, meaning Rock of Israel, a phrase from Tehillim 19:15 and 62:7 and 8, and Shemuel Bet 23:3, as an indirect reference to our Creator. Yet another slight on our Creator and His name. Some people refer to the name of our Creator as the tetragram, but this term is just another means of denying His name and breaking the name command. Modern scholarship understands proper nouns are always transliterated directly from the source language into the target language in order to maintain, as far as possible, the same phonetic sound. Proper nouns are transliterated. They are never translated, and they are certainly not substituted with another word from another language. Why do our religious leaders not teach us correctly? The Noahide laws are a set of moral laws, which are interpretations from the oral law, being the Mishnah and the Gemara, which together form the Talmud. These laws were supposedly given by our Creator first to Adam and later to Noah, and hence are applicable to all humanity. There are supposedly 7 Noahide laws. However, in reality, they are 7 categories with many laws within each category. Hence, the devil is in the detail. The Noahide laws are not mentioned in the Sumerian Pentateuch or in the Tanakh, and they contradict the Tanakh in so many ways, I do not even know where to begin. These words I have spoken to you so that you do not stumble. They shall put you out of the synagogues, and an hour is coming when everyone who kills you shall think he is rendering service to Elohim. And this they shall do to you because they did not know the Father nor me. But I have said these words to you, so that when the hour comes, you remember that I told them to you. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. Could this be a prophecy of an international court of law established on the basis of the Noahide laws, which brings in the death penalty for Gentiles who break any of the 7 Noahide laws? In the Tanakh, one law for native-born Israelites and foreigners, sojourners. Foreigners are to be treated like citizens with the same rights and responsibilities, emphasizing impartial justice and equal treatment, and reflecting Elohim's own love and justice. Mishnah Torah, Kings and Wars 8. Moses only gave the Torah and the mitzvot as an inheritance to Israel. Moses was commanded by the Almighty to compel all the inhabitants of the world to accept the commandments given to Noah's descendants. If one does not accept these commands, he should be executed. Capital punishment. In the Tanakh, death is by stoning on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. In the Mishnah, death is by decapitation on the testimony of 1 witness. The definition of blasphemy. In the Tanakh, blasphemy is pronouncing our Creator's name as a curse, that is, with contempt, reproach, scorn, or defiance. Blasphemy is not pronouncing our Creator's name as a blessing, in praise and with respect. It is wicked men who call pronouncing our Creator's name blasphemy, e.g., Nebaioth. Pharisaic and rabbinic religious leaders. Mishneh Sanhedrin 7.5 appears to follow the definition in the Tanakh. However, in practice we see Pharisaic and rabbinic religious leaders interpret blasphemy under 2 heads. 1. Blasphemy is pronouncing the name of our Creator. 2. Blasphemy is a person declaring himself equal with our Creator. For example, our Messiah in Luke chapter 4 and Luke chapter 22, and the stoning of Stephen in Acts chapter 7. 3. Conclusion. Our Creator prohibits us from adding to, subtracting from, or diminishing His word. He commands us to not bring His name to destruction, lying, or falsehood. He has magnified His word above His name. Wicked men have removed our Creator's name from His word. It is amazing the depths people will go to remove the name of our Creator from His scriptures and from the lips of His people, using the guise of, out of respect for the name, do they justify the names of shame and blasphemy. It is wicked men who avoid pronouncing our Creator's name by substituting other terms. You who make your boast in the Torah, through the transgression of the Torah, do you disrespect Elohim? For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the nations because of you, as it has been written. And now, what have I here, declares Yahuwah, that my people are taken away for naught? Those who rule over them make them wail, declares Yahuwah, and my name is despised all day continually. O Elohim, how long would the adversary reproach? Would the enemy despise your name forever? Remember this, the enemy has reproached Yahuwah, and a foolish people have despised your name.